Good morning. These excerpts from the Morrow Family of Newgate Street depict the domestic struggles and communal resilience of a London family during 1944. The narrative focuses on Maud and Richard Biggs, who manage their shop and household while navigating the dangers of World War II, including, this time, the terror of V1 and V2 rockets. Central to the plot is the trauma of Isabella, a woman seeking revenge against the predatory Dick, and the physical recovery of Maggie after a devastating accident involving an American tank. Amid legal battles, financial windfalls from a country estate, and the challenges of wartime rationing, the characters strive for stability. The arrival of the D-Day invasion and the ultimate death of their antagonist provide a sense of closure as the war nears its end. This part explores themes of survival, justice, and the enduring bonds formed under the pressure of conflict. I think it's safe to say that I should never apply for a job as a newsreader because I would be bloody useless. Here we go. 1944. 2 more to go. 2 more to go.
Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are settling in for something pretty massive today. We're cracking open the archives for a story that I know a lot of you have been following along with us, well, religiously. We are looking at the Morrow Family of Newgate Street.
It is a saga. I mean, it is a saga in the truest sense of the word.
It really is. And just to orient everyone, because we are dropping right into the middle of a very long life, this is the 6th installment.
6th of 8.
Right, 6th of 8 books. We're nearing the end of the war, but we are definitely not at the end of the story.
No, and context is everything here.
Right.
We've followed Maud Morrow, who is now Maud Biggs. We've seen her go through the Blitz, through the early days of rationing, through some incredible personal loss. But today, we're zooming in.
Yeah.
We're focusing on one calendar year, 1944.
1944. Now, for most people, you say 1944, and they think of, well, one thing.
D-Day.
D-Day. They think of Eisenhower, the beaches of Normandy, the big push into France. They think of the map, turning from Nazi gray to Allied blue.
And that's the macro view, right? That's the history textbook version. But the source material we have today, this isn't about generals moving pins on a map.
No.
This is about the micro view. It's about one specific, crowded, chaotic house in central London. And the vibe I get from all these documents isn't glory, it's exhaustion.
Oh, absolute bone-deep fatigue. You can feel it in the dialogue, can't you? These people have been at war for 5 years.
5 years.
They're tired of the queues, they're tired of the blackout, they're tired of being scared. But, strangely enough, 1944 turns out to be, arguably the most dramatic year for the family, personally.
It's a year of extremes,
Yeah.
Just incredible highs and devastating lows. And looking at the outline of events, there is a massive thematic undercurrent here that we really need to unpack.
And what's that?
It's the tension between the law and justice.
That is a crucial distinction,
Yeah.
because as we're going to see, what is legal and what is right they're often two completely different things in 1944 London.
Precisely. We're going to see courtroom dramas where the victim is actually the villain and the so-called criminal is the hero. We're going to see these archaic laws being used to suppress grief.
And just the randomness of it all.
The arbitrary cruelty of war, where you can survive the Blitz, you can survive everything the enemy throws at you, only to be taken out by your own side.
It is a lot to get through, so let's not waste any time. We need to start where the year starts. January 1944, Section 1, The Return of Isabella Argabrate.
Isabella. Now, if you recall from our previous deep dives on this, Isabella is one of Maud's strays.
Right.
A young woman who fell under the influence of a truly awful man named Dick Pepper.
Dick Pepper, the dentist. The man from the wealthy family.
The predator. Let's just call him what he is. He manipulated Isabella, he assaulted her, and then through a series of machinations involving his powerful father, Isabella ended up taking the fall.
For crimes she didn't commit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She was sent to Holloway Prison.
And in January of 44, she's released. But the source text, I mean, it makes it very, very clear. She doesn't just walk out of prison. She sort of limps out.
The physical description is just gut-wrenching. And I think we need to pause on this because we often have this, this sanitized view of doing time in this era.
Yeah, we think of it as just being locked in a room.
Right. But the text mentions she is suffering from Sarcoptes scabiei.
Which is, what is that exactly?
It's scabies, a parasitic mite.
Ugh.
It burrows into your skin to lay eggs. It causes this intense, maddening itching. And it thrives in conditions of, filth, overcrowding, shared bedding that hasn't been boiled. For Isabella to come out of Holloway with a severe infestation, it tells us everything.
It tells you the prison conditions had just completely collapsed.
She wasn't being rehabilitated. She was being, almost literally eaten alive.
That's a visceral image. So she's malnourished, she's covered in sores, and mentally, she is not in a good place.
She's fixated. The psychology here is fascinating. Yeah. She isn't looking for a fresh start. She isn't thinking about, getting a job or finding a new life. She is entirely fueled by one thing.
Revenge.
A need for revenge against Dick Pepper.
The text describes her going to his house in Hampstead. Now, this house has been bomb damaged, right?
Yes. It's a ruin. And there's something so gothic about that image, isn't there? Her standing there, this emaciated, scarred woman, just staring at the ruins of his house, carrying a knife in her bag.
It's a powder keg just waiting for a spark.
It is.
And Maud takes her in. This is what I love about Maud. Most people would look at Isabella, an ex-con with a contagious skin condition, and say, good luck, but not in my house.
Right.
Maud opens the door.
Maud collects fallen lambs. It's her defining trait. She sees the human being, not the social stigma. But in doing that, she brings this incredibly volatile element into her home just as another crisis is about to explode.
Right. The spark for the powder keg.
Yes.
Maggie.
Maud's daughter.
Maggie reveals that she's pregnant. And in a twist that you almost couldn't write if it weren't in the logs.
You couldn't make it up.
The father is Dick Pepper.
The complexity of that is just staggering. You have Isabella, whose life was completely ruined by this man, and now you have Maggie, who is carrying his child. It creates this bizarre, tragic triangle of trauma.
And Maggie decides she has to confront him.
Naively, I think.
Very naively. She seems to think she can appeal to his sense of honor.
Or maybe shame him into providing support. She just doesn't understand that men like Dick Pepper don't feel shame. They don't have honor.
So the scene is set. Isabella, feeling protective, accompanies Maggie to track him down.
They find him at his father's house in Theobald's Road. And this confrontation, it escalates immediately.
He doesn't even let them in, does he?
No, he opens the door, and he doesn't see a woman carrying his child. He sees a problem, a threat to his reputation.
And he just unloads on her.
Calls her a whore.
Yeah.
Accuses her of blackmail.
Yeah.
And then he crosses the line. He gets physical.
He grabs Maggie. He twists her wrist.
Yeah.
He pushes her, a pregnant woman.
And that is the trigger. Isabella is watching this. She's watching the man who destroyed her now physically assaulting her pregnant friend. And the source text says she snapped. But I think it's more than that.
It's a release.
It's a release of months and months of prison rage, of injustice, of feeling powerless.
She attacks him with the knife she's been carrying, and she doesn't just cut him. The book describes it as a frenzy.
But the specific injury she inflicts is incredibly precise in its own way and incredibly damaging.
She goes for his hands.
He goes for the hands and the wrists. She severs the ulnar artery. She destroys the tendons and the nerves.
Which, for a dentist, a surgeon,
it's a career death sentence. You cannot hold a drill. You cannot perform surgery with severed tendons in your dominant hand. He survives the blood loss, but his life as a professional is over.
It's almost biblical, an eye for an eye.
In a way, yes. Isabella takes his hands because he used those hands to hurt them.
But now we have to talk about the fallout, because this is where that theme of law versus justice just hits you like a ton of bricks.
Right.
Isabella is arrested. She's charged with causing grievous bodily harm.
And if you look at it purely from the perspective of the law, well, she's guilty. She stabbed a man. That is a fact.
But if you look at it from the perspective of justice.
That's the debate, isn't it? Because the court doesn't hear the backstory. They don't hear about the manipulation, the previous assaults, the fact that he was attacking a pregnant Maggie right then and there.
Or they hear it and they just don't care.
They wouldn't have cared. This is in 1944.
Yeah.
The class dynamics are insurmountable.
Mm-hmm.
On one side of the courtroom, you have Dick Pepper. He's the victim.
He plays the victim perfectly.
Of course. He's a gentleman, a professional, standing there with his bandaged, ruined hands. The jury sees a tragedy.
And on the other side,
They see Isabella, a young woman with a criminal record. A woman known to associate with, quote-unquote, loose morals. A woman from the working class. The narrative just writes itself for them.
she's the savage. He's the civilized man who was attacked.
Exactly. Maggie tries to testify, though.
Yeah.
She tries to tell them what kind of man he is.
But her testimony is tainted, isn't it, in their eyes?
Completely tainted. Because she's carrying his illegitimate child. In the eyes of a 1944 jury, that makes her unreliable. It makes her hysterical or vindictive. The verdict was really never in doubt.
7 years.
7 years.
It just feels like a life sentence. Maud is devastated. She feels responsible because she couldn't protect them. But what strikes me is that even in that moment of absolute defeat, Maud is already plotting.
She is. She's talking about appeals. She's talking about fighting back.
She refuses to accept the law as the final word on the matter.
But before she can really mobilize, the year moves on. And we go from the high drama and tragedy of the courtroom to something that, quite frankly, sounds like a Monty Python sketch.
Right. Section 2. April. The Witchcraft Act. I had to read this twice. I mean, you're telling me that in 1944, with V-2 rockets and Spitfires and modern warfare, the British government is actually using a law from 1735.
The Witchcraft Act of 1735. It sounds completely absurd, but it was a very real tool used by the authorities during the war. And you have to understand the context.
Okay.
They weren't hunting witches on broomsticks. They were hunting despondency.
Explain that. What is alarm and despondency?
It was a specific crime under wartime regulations. The government knew that morale was the single most critical resource they had. If the people gave up hope, the war was lost, period.
And where does spiritualism fit into that?
Well, think about the emotional state of London in 1944. Everyone is grieving. Everyone has lost a son, a husband, a neighbor, a house. People were desperate.
So they turn to mediums.
Exactly. Seances, mediums, Ouija boards. There was this huge explosion of magical thinking because people were desperate for one last conversation with the dead.
And Mrs. Foster, Maud's elderly lodger, she's a part of this. She's a medium.
She helps people connect. But the government sees this as a threat.
A threat? Why?
A massive threat. Imagine if a medium tells a war widow, your husband is in pain, or I see a dark cloud over London next Tuesday. That spreads panic. It lowers morale. So the authorities decided to crack down on spiritualism, not because they believed in ghosts, but because they needed to control the narrative of the war.
So poor Mrs. Foster gets arrested. And the details are just so mundane.
So mundane. She's out buying paraffin for the heater.
And a Constable Redcalf just arrests her.
He does. And the charge is technically obtaining money by false pretenses and public mischief. And the reason is that she had told a woman that her dead husband didn't want to speak to her.
Which honestly is the funniest message from the great beyond I have ever heard. I'm dead, leave me alone.
It's practical. But the law didn't find it very funny. She ends up in magistrate's court. Now, she gets off relatively lightly. She's bound over for 3 years.
Meaning she has to stop the mediumship or she'll go to jail.
Right. But the real story here isn't the legal one. It's what happens afterwards.
Maud takes her for a cup of tea. And Mrs. Foster just breaks down.
This is where the caricature of the kooky medium just falls away, and we see the human tragedy underneath. We learn Mrs. Foster's history. She isn't just an eccentric. She is a woman who has been defined by loss.
She lost her husband, Douglas, in the First World War.
And she lost her 2 daughters, Edith and Avis, in this war, killed by a bomb. She is entirely alone in the world.
And then she drops the mask completely.
She reveals a secret she has carried for over 40 years.
She had another daughter.
An illegitimate child born before she was married, a baby she was forced to give up for adoption. And this revelation, it changes everything about her character. Her spiritualism, it wasn't a scam.
No.
It was a desperate, maybe subconscious attempt to find the family she had lost. She's looking for ghosts because she has no one left among the living.
That longing for connection is so palpable. And it really sets the stage for what happens later in the year with that daughter. But before we get there, we have to deal with May. I have to be honest, reading the notes for this section was difficult because up until now, the violence we've seen has been, well, it's been expected in a way.
It's wartime violence.
It's the Blitz, it's bad guys, it's the enemy. But this is different.
It's the cruelest moment in the entire book, I think. And the setting just makes it worse. The source text emphasizes the weather. It's a normal Tuesday in May. The sun is shining. The shop door is open. It feels like spring, like hope.
And there's this excitement in the air. A convoy is coming through Newgate Street.
American Sherman tanks. This is the big build-up to the invasion of Europe. The Allies are here. The cavalry has arrived. The street is lined with people. They're waving and cheering.
Gail, the shop assistant, runs out. Maggie runs out. It's just a moment of pure, unadulterated joy.
And then, in a split second, it turns into a horror movie.
The text isn't entirely clear on how it happened. Maybe a slip, maybe the crowd pushed forward, but Maggie falls.
And a Sherman tank weighs 30 tons. It doesn't stop on a dime.
Gail runs in screaming. Maud runs out. And the description, she sees a mass of red where her daughter's feet should be. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine that image.
It's traumatizing just to read it. Maggie is rushed to St. Bartholomew's Hospital. The medical outcome is, it's inevitable. The damage is too severe.
We have to amputate her leg.
Above the knee.
A young woman, a mother to a 4-year-old girl, Juliet. She survives the Blitz, she survives the V1s, only to be maimed by an Allied tank on a sunny afternoon.
It forces you to confront the idea of friendly fire in a civilian context. The very machine that was sent to liberate Europe has just destroyed her life. The irony is just suffocating.
The aftermath in the hospital is fascinating, psychologically. Initially, she's almost manic.
It's the shock. And the morphine, she's making jokes, she's euphoric. Maud is terrified because Maggie isn't making any sense. But then the drugs wear off.
And she has to wake up.
She has to wake up to a new reality. She is a 20-something single mother in 1944 London, and she is an amputee.
And there's that scene where the driver, the American, William Henry Cross, comes to visit her.
That scene is just heartbreaking. He's just a kid, an American boy, probably 19 or 20 years old. He's trained to kill Nazis, and instead he's crushed a young English woman. He's just riddled with guilt.
And Maggie. Maggie comforts him.
That is the stiff upper lip in action.
It really is.
It is. It's that wartime resilience. She decides immediately that she cannot crumble. She has to carry on for her daughter, Juliet. We should not mistake that stoicism for a lack of pain. The trauma is there. She just buries it deep so she can function.
So the family is just reeling from this, but as always in this saga, life doesn't stop. The bills still need to be paid. And in June, we get a shift in tone. We go from tragedy to a bit of a detective story.
Right, section 4, the farm.
Forest Reach. This is the farm that Maud and her friend Elizabeth Nettle inherited. It's supposed to be their safety net, their source of food.
But Gail, who is surprisingly sharp with numbers,
Yeah.
notices something fishy in the ledgers.
The profits dipped. Suspiciously. Starting around 1940.
Enter Mr. Potter, the farm manager. The text describes him almost like a caricature mutton chop whiskers, a bowler hat. He looks like he stepped right out of 1890.
And he projects this image of the loyal, old-fashioned retainer.
But he's a crook.
He's a total crook.
Their solicitor, a Mr. Mann, calls with the news. Mr. Potter has vanished.
And the safe?
The safe has been emptied. He's embezzled about 75 pounds.
Which was a significant amount of money in 1944.
It was. Maud is annoyed, naturally, but there is this real sense of vindication because she never liked him, she never trusted him. But what I love here is Maud's reaction when the solicitor asks us about finding a replacement.
This is one of my favorite Maud moments in the entire series. She says, "I want a woman."
It's a brilliant sociological snapshot. Maud tells the solicitor, look around you. She talks about the female engineers she's met, the women working in the factories. She basically says the men are away and the women are running the country better than they ever did. Get me a woman.
It's Maud stepping into the modern age. She's not just a housewife anymore. She's a progressive employer.
It reflects the massive shift in gender roles that the war forced upon society. And Maud is embracing it.
Now, we need to circle back to Mrs. Foster. Remember that secret daughter? In July, Section 5, they find her.
Yes, Reverend Harper, who is a bit of an unsung hero in these books,
Yeah.
manages to track her down.
And the daughter is a nun.
Sister Evelyn. She's living at the Sisters of Christ convent in Margate.
And traveling to Margate in 1944 wasn't like, hopping on a train today.
No, absolutely not. The entire coast was a restricted military zone. It was fortified against a potential German invasion. You needed permits. You had to go through checkpoints.
And Mrs. Foster, this elderly woman, navigates all of this. She is so desperate. She has built up this whole fantasy of a reunion in her mind.
She wants to hug the child she gave away. She wants forgiveness, or maybe just a connection.
And she gets neither.
The meeting is just ice cold.
It's devastating to read.
It is. Sister Evelyn is polite, but she is completely and utterly detached. She refers to her own body as just a vessel. She has no interest at all in her biological mother. She basically tells Mrs. Foster, I have God. That is my family. You are a stranger to me.
It's such a clash of worldviews. Mrs. Foster believes in the blood connection, the earthly bond.
And Sister Evelyn believes only in the spiritual connection.
So Mrs. Foster leaves, heartbroken. She realizes that the daughter she mourned and dreamed about for 40 years, well, she doesn't exist. There is only this nun. It's another door, just slamming shut in her face.
It's just one blow after another for her. But then, in August, the pendulum swings back. We get a little bit of that justice we were talking about.
Right. Section 6, Justice Revisited.
Maud and Elizabeth refused to let Isabella just rot in prison. They hired a new solicitor, a much more high-powered one named Mr. Freeth. They spent money they didn't really have.
And they hired a private investigator.
And guess what? Money talks. Especially in wartime London.
It certainly does. They find Isabella's mother, Mrs. Argabright.
And they bribe her. Let's be clear, they pay her to testify about what she knows. They find 3 other women that Dick Pepper had assaulted over the years. They trace the bribe money that his father used to silence people.
They build an ironclad case.
They do. And they take it to the High Court. The description of the court is so different from the Old Bailey. It's majestic oak paneling, wigs, robes, the whole show.
And this time, with the expensive lawyer and the irrefutable evidence, the system actually works.
The judge quashes the sentence. He sees the gross miscarriage of justice for what it was.
So Isabella is cleared. Warrants are issued for Dick and Edward Pepper. It's a total victory.
It is. On paper.
On paper? What do you mean?
Look at Isabella when she walks out of that court. She isn't celebrating. She's not relieved. She's cold. She rejects her mother, the woman who just helped free her, viciously. The prison time, the betrayal, it broke something inside her. She's free, but she is not the same person.
And the villains. Do they finally go to jail?
No. We find out later that Dick Pepper committed suicide. He put his head in a gas oven rather than face the consequences of prison. And his father, Edward, fled the country, likely to America.
So there's no trial, no public reckoning, just silence.
It's a hollow victory. The bad guys are gone, but the damage they did remains.
Moving into the autumn, Section 7. Oh, we have to talk about Audrey. She's another one of the strays living in Maud's house. And she is, well, she's complicated.
Audrey is the counterpoint to Isabella. Isabella was a victim who lashed out. Audrey is a survivor who becomes a predator herself. She's young, she's street smart, and it's heavily, heavily implied she's involved in prostitution.
She always seems to have money. She's buying cigarettes, staying out late.
And violence follows her, too. There's an incident during a blackout or a dim out. She attacks a man in the yard.
Mr. O'Mara, he was a special constable.
Right. Turns out he tried to assault her, and she stabbed him. So, again, self-defense, probably. But she's dangerous.
But the real betrayal, the truly awful part, happens inside the house with Mrs. Foster.
Mrs. Foster is found destitute, completely penniless.
And this is the final tragedy for her. She had savings, about 200 pounds, which was her life savings.
It turns out she gave it all to Audrey, because Audrey spun her this elaborate sob story about a sick brother who needed an operation.
A complete lie.
A total lie. Audrey conned a lonely, grieving, vulnerable old woman out of every penny she had in the world. And shortly after this is revealed, Mrs. Foster dies.
The coroner's report says cardiac arrest, natural causes.
But Maud suspects, and I think the reader's meant to suspect, that she died of a broken heart. The rejection by her nun daughter, followed by this cruel betrayal by Audrey. It was just too much for her to bear.
And because all her money is gone.
She has to be buried in a pauper's grave. It is the ultimate indignity. A woman who gave so much, who suffered so much, is buried with nothing because of a con artist.
It just makes you so angry. And Audrey goes to prison for the stabbing, but the money is never recovered. It's such a bleak reminder that the war didn't make everyone noble.
No, it made some people desperate, and it made some people cruel.
But then, November brings some answers, and surprisingly, some new life. Section 8. We finally find out the truth about Gail and her old boyfriend, Freddie Robinson.
Gail had been terrified of him for books now. We finally learn why. He hadn't just accidentally hurt her, which was the story before. He assaulted her. He punched her to the ground.
So she's a survivor of domestic abuse.
Yes. And it reframes her entire character arc. And then she gets news that he's dead.
And again, it's not some glorious death in combat.
Not at all. A fellow airman visits and tells her he died in an explosion at an airfield months ago. An accident. A fuel tank went up.
It just lifts this shadow from her life. It's a grim kind of relief. But then, to balance all this death and trauma, Elizabeth Nettle gives birth.
A son, Nigel, born in late 1944.
It feels incredibly symbolic.
It is. Amidst the V-weapons, the amputations, the funerals, a baby is born. It's the promise that there will be a future, that life does go on.
Speaking of V-weapons, we really need to deep dive into the atmosphere of late 1944, Section 9, because while all this personal drama is happening, the sky is literally falling on them.
This is the year the technology of war shifted in a terrifying way for civilians. The Blitz in 1940 was bombers. You heard them coming. You had a warning.
Right.
The V-1s, the doodlebugs, which started earlier in 44, were cruise missiles. They had that distinctive pulse jet engine. Buzz, buzz, buzz.
And the rule was, if you can hear it, you're safe.
Exactly, because when the engine cut out, that's when it dove.
Yeah.
So the silence was the terrifying part. But late 1944, the Germans introduced the V-2. And this is a technological leap that terrified the British government more than anything else.
Why? What was so different about the V-2?
Physics. The V-2 was a ballistic missile. It left the atmosphere and came down at over 3,000 miles per hour. It was supersonic.
Meaning, it was faster than sound.
Meaning it arrived before you heard it. There was no siren, there was no buzzing. You would be walking down the street and suddenly, boom, the building next to you is a crater. The sound of the rocket's approach came after the explosion.
That is psychologically terrifying. You can't even take cover.
You can't. It is random death from a clear blue sky. The government was so scared of the panic this would cause that for the first few weeks, they lied about it. They told the press the explosions were exploding gas mains. Exploding gas mains. Did anyone actually believe that? Not for a second. Londoners aren't stupid. They saw the craters, they knew. But it shows how desperate the authorities were to keep that stiff upper lip from quivering. They knew they couldn't stop the V-2s, so they tried to pretend they didn't exist.
And physically, the people were just wrecked. The text mentions Maud having a health scare.
Her hand ulcerates. She's losing weight rapidly. Richard is terrified it's cancer. It turns out to be a severe vitamin deficiency. Her body is literally breaking down from 5 years of stress and bad food. They're all running on fumes.
But then, December arrives, Section 10, and we get this moment of magic. The hamper.
The hamper from Forest Reach Farm. This massive crate arrives at the shop, and they pry it open.
And it's like looking at treasure.
It is. Chicken, real butter, real cheese, eggs. Things they haven't seen in any kind of abundance for years. It's the farm, with its new female manager, finally paying off.
And it allows them to have a Christmas feast that feels like the old days.
It does. And the war news is turning too. The Battle of the Bulge is happening, which is a desperate gamble by the Nazis, but everyone knows they're losing.
Yeah.
The end is finally in sight.
There's this beautiful, quiet scene on New Year's Eve. Richard and Maud are sitting by the fire, and they open the front door and the back door
to let the old year out and the new one in.
It's an old superstition, but in 1944, it feels so heavy with meaning. They are letting out the year of the prison, the year of the tank accident, the year of Mrs. Foster's death. They are physically pushing that trauma out of the house.
And welcoming 1945.
Which they hope, they pray, will be the year of victory.
And there's another observation in the text. London is quiet. The heavy machinery of war, the tanks and the trucks that rumble through the streets all year, they've gone.
They're on the continent.
They're fighting their way to Berlin. And London is just waiting for peace.
So let's bring this all together. We've looked at the tragedy, the law, the atmosphere. What is the real takeaway from the Morrow family's 1944?
I think it completely challenges the simple narrative we have of the home front. We romanticize it. We think of Vera Lynn songs and cups of tea and everyone pulling together. But this narrative shows the grit. It shows the scabies. It shows the unwanted pregnancies. It shows the con artists preying on the elderly. It shows the sheer grinding injustice of the legal system.
It shows that victory isn't free, not even close.
Exactly. The cost was incredibly high. Maggie will never walk the same again. Mrs. Foster is gone. Isabella is emotionally scarred for life. They survived, yes. but they are broken in ways that peace won't magically fix.
It raises a provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider. For people like Maggie or for Mrs. Foster's memory, is there really such a thing as victory? Or is it just survival? Is there a point where the cost becomes too high?
I think for the Morrows, making it to the end of this brutal, brutal year was the victory. Just being there together on New Year's Eve was enough.
That is a powerful place to leave it. 1944 tested them to their absolute limit, but they are still standing. And the story isn't over yet.
2 books left. 1945 is coming.
We will be there to cover it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It was a heavy one, but a really important one.
Absolutely. Keep reading.
See you next time.